Hey friends, Sleepy here, and welcome to another episode of the weekly playlist. It's Friday, so it's time to share with you guys the games I have been playing during the week. Now, I've been in a real Sega Genesis mood this past week, so that's all I've been doing is playing games on my Genesis. I've got 4 titles to share with you guys today. I'll just let you guys know my thoughts and opinions on the game, and of course, I'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are on these games. If you played them, what did you like about them, what did you not like about them? I'd also like to hear what games you guys have been playing during the week. And if you have any suggestions on games you think I should play, let me know, because you guys have suggested some cool titles for me to keep an eye out for. I'm always looking for good suggestions on new titles to try and experience. I will start off here. The first game here for Sega Genesis, and I've had this in my collection for a while. I picked it up cheap at a thrift store, but this is actually the first time I've ever played it, was this week, and that is Fatal Labyrinth. So this is a roguelike RPG, which means that the uh, dungeons are randomly generated, so it's a randomly generated dungeon crawler. Basic story of this is there's an evil dragon that comes, it steals the goblet of light, and because of that, it plunges the world into darkness, and monsters are attacking. And your job as a hero is to slay the dragon, retrieve the goblet, and free the world from darkness and return it to light. Overall, I was not really impressed with this game when I first tried it out. The music in it is quite annoying at times because it's just kind of like loops over and over, and just is not the best music at all. Like, I really wished they could have done some better music, because there are some Genesis games that have some great music. This is definitely not one of them. So right there, the music is quite annoying. Another thing about this is you do not get to name your hero, so you just are a nameless hero. After it tells a story, the game just starts right off in a town full of villagers, and you can run around talking to the different villagers, and they tell you about the dragon and how the goblet is stolen and the world is doomed and everyone's gonna die, kind of thing. And then when you first try to leave the town, there's an elder guy that says, "Oh no, you can't leave. Everybody who's gone to fight the dragon has died." And then you go up to leave again, and then he tells you, well, if you're going to leave and go, you better tell everyone goodbye. So you go and everyone says, oh, good luck, I hope you kill the dragon, that kind of thing. And then you go up there and enter, and then all of a sudden you're in the first level of the dungeon, so the first dungeon, which there's actually 30 dungeons I read. And when you get to the 30th floor, that's where the dragon is. You beat him, and that'd be the end of the game. So there's no stores in this, so the only way to get items is to find them on the ground, kill enemies, and that's kind of annoying. There is gold in the game, but literally all the gold is for is the more gold you get, that if you die and get a game over, you'd have more people at your grave and at your funeral service. So that's basically all gold does, so that was kind of stupid. And you start off with just a basic little dagger weapon, and you have random enemies. There were slime enemies, there were gargoyles looking things, wizards, vampires, snails, just bats, just random little enemies, and they all do different attacks, have different status things, like especially the wizards are really annoying. And there's like really no like attack button. Like, I died the one time in like 20 seconds. I ran up to an enemy, and I sort of attacked it, and it kept hitting me, and then I ran out of life and died. So it's one of those, like a dice roll type thing when you go to attack enemies. So I didn't really understand the game completely when I was first playing it. But I played it several different times after dying and got a little bit better at it, and found that there is actually a little menu system when you hit the C button, and you can bring up the menu, and you can actually equip items you find. Because I was picking up swords, axes, I was picking up armor and health potions, but I didn't know how to use anything. And so once I figured that out, the game did get a lot better. Found out, you could equip stuff, but you never know what you're going to find because it's randomly generated. And just the difficulty on this is really tough. Now, I did find out that if you get to the 5th floor and you die, you'll restart at the 5th floor. So there are little checkpoints every 5 floors, which I did not make it to the 5th floor. I made it as far as the 4th floor so far. A lot of variety of enemies, though. And it looks like this could have been a much better game than it was, but it was a really early game in the early 90s, and just I don't know. I just had a hard time getting into. I don't know if I would really recommend you guys try out the game. I mean, maybe pick up a copy and see how you like. I mean, I gotta give it some more play, more time. But overall, I just did not really enjoy this game like I thought I would when I first popped it in. Like, oh, this kind of looks interesting, and just I don't know, just wasn't what I was expecting. Just isn't a great thing. I know there's a lot of people that really love this game that said they thought it was awesome, and there's a lot of people who absolutely hate it. And I'm just kind of in the middle right now. I gotta play it some more, but Fatal Labyrinth, just kind of annoying. The music is just awful, and I did like the idea of the randomly generated dungeons, but the combat is what's annoying. Like, had it been more action RPG like, where you know you could actually control attacking, I think the game would have been a lot better, and it really would have been great. But I don't know. I can't really recommend checking out Fatal Labyrinth. I mean, maybe check it out on an emulator or something, but I wouldn't recommend picking up a copy. It was an alright game. Not really good RPG that I would recommend you guys check out. But we played Fatal Labyrinth. Next up, now this game I really had a lot of fun with, and that is Beyond Oasis. So this is an action-adventure game. I talked about this last week. Love this game. It is awesome. I'm now halfway through the game. I do love that you can save in this game anytime you want, unless you're in like a dungeon, like boss area or something. It won't let you save there, but outside of like going into dungeons, castles, and stuff, you can save the game anytime you want, which is great. You start off with just a dagger, which has infinite durability, and when you will find crossbows, you will find bombs, you will find larger swords, and those only have so many uses, so they'll have a number attached to it, like a 5, a 7, 8, or 10, and that's basically how many times you can use it, enemies you can kill with it, which of course they're a lot stronger, but once they're depleted, you know, you lose the item and you go back to your dagger if you don't have any other items to equip. Well, there's a huge variety of monsters. You got archer guys, you got guys with spears, you have all kinds of different creatures, there's zombies, you have these little rotating little trap like tower dudes that can shoot out lasers or spikes, stuff like that. I just absolutely am having a blast with this game. I love Beyond Oasis. A really good game for the Genesis. If you've got the Sega Genesis and you never played Beyond Oasis, highly recommend you pick this game up. Really fun game. So you start off in a village that's getting attacked. You're a prince, and you have to free your kingdom from the evil forces. And you end up going back to your castle where your dad and your sister are, and the story just progresses from there. It's a really fun game. There are a lot of hidden secrets. There are some hidden weapons. I was looking up some stuff about the game, and you can get some really powerful weapons by doing some different side quests and stuff. And really fun game. Now this is more of an action game than like an RPG, because you really don't level up. You can find heart pieces, which will give you more health and does make you stronger. But to get like a better like ending to the game, is you want to try to not pick up as many hearts. It makes the game harder, or something like that I was reading. But a really fun game. I think you guys should try out Beyond Oasis. A fun action game for the Genesis. There's some different attacks and stuff you can do. Like if you hit forward, back, forward, you'll do a swiping attack. I also like that you can run and then hit the attack button, and you will bitch slap enemies and they fly into the air. And when enemies die, they scream, which is really cool. And I like the variety of enemies. And some of them have different attacks. So there's guys that have crossbows, but then there's ones that have flaming crossbows, which is really cool. There's guys that throw bombs at you, which can damage them and damage others. There's puzzles to solve in this game, bosses to fight, and overall the story is really good. I definitely recommend you guys check out Beyond Oasis for the Sega Genesis. It's a really good game. I do have to warn you though, if you want to get a physical copy, it's like a $40 or $50 game. I got mine at a thrift store years ago for cheap. But you can get the ROM and check it out, and I definitely recommend that for Beyond Oasis. A fun action adventure game. Next up, was playing the classic Sonic the Hedgehog. I've not beat this game in years. I have played it a few times this year, but I wanted to finally go through and beat it. And I absolutely had a blast playing this. Loved the Sonic the Hedgehog games. It's actually a game that made me fall in love with the Sega Genesis. I remember a buddy had the Sega Genesis Model 1, and he had Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and that was the first game I played, was this one on the Genesis, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the speed of Sonic, and how it was a much faster and quicker paced game compared to Mario. Now, of course, in the commercials, they were comparing the Genesis and Sonic of being a lot faster than the old Mario Kart, which didn't make sense, because like, you're comparing a adventure game to a kart racing game, so those commercials were kind of stupid. But I love Sonic the Hedgehog, and the original 3 games on the Sega Genesis are amazing and are definitely worth checking out, and the Sonic and Knuckles game. So those 4 games on the Genesis are really good Sonic titles, but I had a lot of fun with Sonic the Hedgehog, this first one. Now, I did not get all the Chaos Emeralds, because if you get all the Chaos Emeralds and you beat Dr. Robotnik, you get the true ending. If you don't, then Sonic just kind of looks at you annoyed. But it was a lot of fun. I loved all the different levels. You start off that Green Hill Zone with that classic music, and each of the different worlds, you have 3 stages, and then when you get to that final stage, you fight a different version of Robotnik. And overall, the game starts out fairly easy, but as you progress through, the game does get more difficult. Now, the final boss is fairly easy. It's probably one of the easier Robotnik battles. Now, there are a few that are tough, but overall, it's a really fun game. Not like super challenging, but there are a few difficult points, but it's worth checking out. Now, this also, you do have a level select code that you can enter if you end up dying too many times, because you have to earn continues, and after you run out of lives and continues, you have to start the whole game all over again, because there is no save points. But that's the nice thing, though, is you could put that level code in if you're at like the end and you don't want to have to go through the whole game again. You could type in that code and get back there. But I did beat this all through in one playthrough. Beat Robotnik again. I had a blast with it. Definitely recommend Sonic the Hedgehog. If you've never played any of the older Sonic games, check out the first one here for Genesis. It's like a $5-10 game at most, but it's really worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of the Genesis. And if you've never played Sonic, which I don't know how many people who have not played Sonic, but maybe there's someone out there that really hasn't played it, check out Sonic the Hedgehog. It was a fantastic game and made me fall in love with the Genesis, so love that. And the last game I played was Road Rash 2, which I am a huge fan of Road Rash. I've played the first Road Rash on Genesis many times. I also played it on my PC. I have it on the PlayStation 1. I've also got it on my 3DO. But the only way to play Road Rash 2 is on the Sega Genesis, which actually Road Rash 2 is my favorite of the 3 released for the Sega Genesis. A little interesting thing is, now originally this came in a big cart form, which I do have, but I don't have that copy with me. They re-released this as a cheaper game, made these in Mexico, and re-released them in boxes. And then the second printing of these games, they re-released it in a small cart form like this, which these are a little bit harder to find. But it's still the same game, still made by EA, but it doesn't, the big cart, and doesn't have that little yellow tab there. I love this game. This one was my absolute favorite. You start off the game with just a shitty bike, and you have to win races to earn money, and you use that money to upgrade your bike or buy better and faster bikes, because as you progress and go through the game and the different levels, you keep getting fast, going against opponents who have faster and better bikes, and you have to keep up by leveling up. I love the comedy in the game with what happens to you if you don't get in the top 3. Everybody attacks you. The women don't like you. It's just really funny stuff happens to the main character if he doesn't win. There's also police in the game, which that was one thing my brother and I loved doing as kids, is beating the cops, because you get weapons in this game. You can steal from other bikers, like clubs. You can get chains that you whip around, and you can smack other bikers and knock them off their bike. You can get hit off your bike, and if you get knocked off, you have to run back to your bike in order to get back on it, so you can get back in the race and you don't lose. And your bikes do have health, so if you get hit too many times, that last time you get to your bike when it has no more health left, it'll explode and your guy will fly off it and you'll be dead, and you'll have to start over again. Fun game though. I absolutely love the Road Rash series. Highly recommend all 3 of them. But number 2 is my absolute favorite. I have beat this game a long time ago, but I have not beat it recently. So I wanted to get back into playing it, but it is really fun. I love the combat aspect to the racing when you're going through the levels, and you gotta watch cars because they come at you and they go past you, so you have to watch out for the various obstacles. There's different people around cheering. There's old ladies and stuff sometimes that try to cross the street. There's cars that'll be in the way. There's rocks and stuff. There's ramps, signs you have to watch out for. And it's just really fun. The music is also great in this game. That's another thing I like. It has that Genesis sound to it, since it's on the Genesis, which I really do like compared to other versions of the game, which they do have great music. But I do like the Genesis version of these games. Now, Road Rash 2, I'm pretty sure is only on the Genesis. I never saw it on any other systems, but you can play the first one on like the PC, which I mentioned, or the 3DO or PlayStation 1, which I've been playing on. But loved Road Rash 2. Absolutely a fun racer, and I just love the combat and beating all the other racers. Such a fun game. So definitely recommend Road Rash 2. Quick little recap. So I talked about Fatal Labyrinth and dungeon crawling roguelike RPG. I just didn't like the music in it. The combat was weird since it was like a dice roll. I did like that the dungeons were randomly generated, but just overall I can't really recommend the game. Let me know if you guys have played it, what you thought of that. I just could not get into it. I'm gonna try it some more, but I don't know. Just don't really like that one that much. Beyond Oasis, a fantastic action-adventure game. Absolutely love it. Great story. I love the combat. I love the music, the characters, the enemies, the control. Just overall, a really fun title. Just have to remind you and, warn you that this game is quite expensive to buy, like 40, 50 bucks loose. I don't even know what it would be cost to get complete, but you can get a ROM of that if you want to try that out. Talked about the classic Sonic the Hedgehog. This is actually the game that made me fall in love with the Genesis. When I played it over at a buddy's house, absolutely fell in love. Had to get my own copy after that, and it's a fun game. If you've never played the first Sonic the Hedgehog game, see how Sonic started out, pick up a copy. It's great. And then we also talked about Road Rash 2, which is a fun racer. Absolutely love it. Has some hilarious characters, has some great endings if you don't do well. And just overall a really fun bike racing game. So let me know your guys' thoughts on these 4 Genesis games. If you played them, what your thoughts are on them. I'd like to hear from you guys. And of course, let me know what games you guys have been playing, and if you have any suggestions. I want to thank you for watching. Take care, have an amazing day, and Sleepy will see you next time.